Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Glenn has held his doctorate in psychology for more than 30 years and is also a former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leave the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Now, before we get started, if you haven't yet downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
Hey, this is the very good Dr. Glenn Livingston with defeatyourcravings.com. I am here with a kind-hearted woman named Marianne, who's agreed to let us record this session so you can benefit from her experience and strength and hope and wisdom, as well as her trials and tribulations and stumbles and falls. Right, Marianne?
Yes. Thanks for talking to me.
You're welcome. How can I help? Tell me what your experience been with food and where are you stuck and how can I help?
Well, I don't feel super stuck right now. Mostly, I just want to tell you this has been so awesome, like life-changing. I have always had issues, kind of like everybody else, with binging and restricting. I hide in the pantry and eat or steal my kids' candy, and then I'm like, I don't know where it went. And I'd buy snacks for my kids just so that I could have some, things like that. And I've always been relatively healthy. I'm really into exercise, actually. So I always have sort of exercised just enough to beat my diet, a poor diet, but always felt sort of like I just couldn't ever really get a grasp on getting to where I really wanted to be. I had my third child in 2015, and then in 2016, I got in really, really good shape, but it was completely unsustainable as far as my diet was concerned because it was really restrictive. I was following someone else's set of rules, was hungry all the time, like really hungry. And I was eating things I didn't really want to be eating because I just was eating what I thought I was supposed to eat. So I kind of felt like I was hanging on with my fingernails, and I'd go to bed at night and think, okay, tomorrow's going to be a good day. And then I'd wake up in the morning and all I could tell myself was, I hope I don't binge today, because it was just sheer willpower. And I didn't know where these binges came from. I've never believed that my inner child needed like a hug or a piece of chocolate cake or anything like that. For therapy or influencers or whatever try to tell you that, oh, you're just sad, that's why you eat too much, or you don't have a good relationship or whatever. But I have a happy marriage, I have health, I have great kids. I grew up as a happy child, so I could never find what that thing was. And I'm really high functioning in all other aspects of my life. I'm organized and intelligent. And so not having a handle on my eating and being able to control myself, it felt like devastating, and it's embarrassing because, you know, like everyone else on this podcast has said, it's not anything you want to share with other people. Anyway, I was meeting with a therapist probably like a couple months ago, and she's been helping me with other things. Then I just sort of mentioned, I just have a real big struggle with like binge eating, but everyone else has always just told me, oh, you need to hire a registered dietitian. And I've always thought that was really stupid because I know what I should be eating. I understand nutrition. I understand what I should eat. I just can't get myself to do it. And I told my therapist, I don't need someone to tell me what to eat. I need someone to follow me around and slap the junky food out of my hands and say, don't eat that. I just need someone to have my willpower for me. But she said something. She said, you've created a habit and you can retrain that. And that thought stuck with me. And that was something that I ended up Googling, something like retrain your brain, and I've read Brain Over Binge and followed Catherine Hansen for a while. And I love her concept. I just never found it to be something that I could actually put into practice because I didn't have the tools to do that, which is, I think, what Defeat Your Cravings has given me. Anyway, I Googled this phrase of like retrain your brain not to binge or overeat or something, and one of your articles on Psychology Today came up. And I read that and I was like, oh, this guy gets it. I noticed on there that you're a published author, so I looked you up on Amazon and realized when I saw the book that I had seen it before, probably 5 years ago. But I wasn't ready, I don't think, for the message or for whatever at that time because I was like, this is really kind of weird. It sounded like a little hokey. But at this time, I just kept reading it because I think probably because I read your article first. And I don't think there was a mention of like a pig or anything like that. It was just like higher brain versus lower brain, which I understand. And so that's, I think, what drew me in. And then I saw your book and I thought, okay, I'm just going to read this. And it was free, so I downloaded it. I read the whole thing in a couple days. And that was about 5 weeks ago. So I've made rules and I've got my mantras and I've learned how to do refutations. I've listened to every podcast episode that you have. And I'm actually re-listening because now as I re-listen with a little bit of experience under my belt, I feel like now there are deeper things that I catch. And I think, oh yeah, that would make it even better. So I've lost 10 pounds in like 5 weeks. I don't expect to keep losing that fast. And I feel overall just better. I feel lighter. I have more energy. I don't feel like I have to work out to combat what I eat. I love exercise, but I've always felt like I had to do more than I really wanted to do in order to stay on top of things. I've realized over the last 5 weeks that I can exercise just as much as I want to, which is like a 30 to 40 minute workout of anything, weights, cardio, yoga, just a smattering of things. And I can continue to lose weight because I'm not eating a bunch of garbage.
You no longer have the burden of compensatory exercise.
Yeah. And I love to work out. And it's like a social thing for me. It's something that I love, but I always sort of would think, oh, I ate a bunch of junk today, which means tomorrow I can do my regular workout, but then I need to do an extra hour on the treadmill or an extra 30 minutes or whatever. And that felt like purgatory. So
You can't really outrun a bad diet.
no, you can't. I could in my 20s, but I'm 45 now. Apparently, that's not possible as you get older.
Right, because the cells in your pancreas, they degrade over time, or they're not as good at processing the junk, and liver and your kidneys, and we're just not as good at it. You mentioned a whole bunch of things, Marianne. It's a wonderful story, quite a journey you've been on. I'm wondering, what specifically was it about Defeat Your Cravings that's clicked for you and changed your life in this way?
I think a couple of things. For me, it's making my own rules because I have tried for so long to adopt somebody else's diet. And, it worked for this person and they've got pictures on Instagram or they sold a book or whatever. And then I start and I just think, well, this is terrible. I hate all this food. I mean, I've done everything. South Beach diet, Body for Life, the keto, paleo, the whole thing. Yes, and the thing is it actually is quite interesting to me. I love to talk to people about what are they eating? What do they like to eat? What makes them feel good? What sort of exercise do they like? It's very interesting to me. And I don't always do it all the time thinking with that thought in the back of my mind of the ulterior motive of finding a new diet. But for myself, I've never gone extreme. I've never taken like medication for weight loss or anything like that, or never done really like fasting or anything like that. I've tried the binge and restrict. That's probably as far as I've ever gone. And I would do really good for 2 days. And then I'd just dive headfirst into a package of Oreos and wake up a couple hours later and they were gone. But I think the thing is making my own rules has really helped me. And then focusing on a big why, because as I get older, that's more important to me than weight loss. Like I want to lose weight and feel good because I know I have better self-esteem and I feel better about myself when I look better. But I've watched my parents age tremendously quickly over the last 4 years or so, probably since COVID. It's scary to see how quickly they have declined. And my dad's been diagnosed with Parkinson's. My mom has dementia. They don't eat healthy. They never have. I didn't grow up eating healthy, maybe not as badly as you were treated when you with Pop-Tarts and stuff, but like we didn't eat fresh vegetables when I was growing up. They all came out of a can. There was never a variety of food. And my parents still don't have that. My big why is that I want to be able to combat some of those things and just make aging easier. I don't want to turn 75 and then suddenly just tank and hate my life forever. I have a lot of longevity in my family on both sides. Like, it's very likely that I'll live to be 100 years old. But I don't want the last 25 years to be in pain or without memory or stuff like that.
Most of our society has a severe degradation in the latter half of their life. Those are supposed to be your golden years, right?
Yeah, I want that. I want to be able to retire and enjoy my life and not be like homebound.
So making your own rules was a big part of it, having the confidence that you could actually do that. What were the rules that you made that worked so well for you?
My biggest rule is that I just had to give up sugar. And I think I'm one of those, kind of like you've said, like 1 in 3 that just has to like stop it completely.
If you are and you do, that's life changing.
Yes, yeah. And I noticed even just the first day after I didn't eat any sugar or any junk, I woke up the next morning and I was like, oh, I'm not swollen. My joints feel really good and my feet don't hurt and my rings fit. My wedding ring fits and I can put it on. And there are times when I can't do that because of just what I've eaten. So I just made a rule that I never eat anything sweet besides whole fruit. I did put except on the evening of my birthday. And I had to narrow that even down to the evening because I knew if I said just my birthday, that I would go whole hog for like 24 hours, you know? So I don't worry so much about sugars and things like condiments and stuff like that because those aren't a problem for me. My biggest problem is just candy and like baked sweet things. I would hear people say, don't eat sugar, don't eat sugar. And then I would have this obsession with, well, I can't have this salad dressing that I love, and I can't have barbecue sauce and things. And those have never been a problem. I don't binge on stuff like that. So those aren't a problem for me. And I think the thing that Defeat Your Cravings has done for me has made me realize that I can set rules for myself, but I don't have to cut out the things that aren't a problem for me. Following a diet or following somebody else's plan, I was getting told I had to cut things out that I like that are never an issue for me. Like, I don't have an issue with nuts ever. I never binge on nuts. But Defeat Your Cravings has told me it's okay to eat nuts because they're not a problem for you, but you should probably stay away from the cupcakes and the gummy treats and things like that.
Your rule specifically said the only sweet taste you'll have is whole fruit, and so that allows you to have savory taste that might have a little sugar in it.
Yeah, and I still have a little bit of pure maple syrup. I think it's more added sugar. I guess maybe I should define it down that way, is that it's more of a, like, I just don't want to eat a lot of added sugar. I'll have natural sugars, so pure maple syrup, I put a little bit of that in my oatmeal and it's fine, but I don't binge on that. And I think that's what it's helped me to do, is to distinguish between the things that cause a binge and the things that don't. And so I don't feel like I'm being deprived of every good thing in my life. I just have to turn on that like higher brain that says, this is something that's going to be a problem, so just don't do it.
And has compliance been an issue at all?
Only when I get my period. I haven't heard a lot of women talk about this on your episodes. I've heard some women mention things like menopause. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm not as scared about it anymore. Like, I listened to one episode where a woman said she was losing weight even in menopause. I don't even necessarily feel like I have to lose weight during menopause. I just don't want to put on a whole bunch of weight and have that be an excuse. So I think that one thing that Defeat Your Cravings has also done for me is it's made me really aware of when my cravings are just a thought and when there actually is potentially like a hormonal biological need for food. And I don't know if there's any difference really between those two things, because I track my cycle really closely. And so I can see when those days are that I'm like, okay, this is just PMS. I'm just super hungry, even though I've eaten what I'm supposed to eat. I'm just unsatiated because I know that it's PMS.
That's one way to deal with it. Another way is to, you're not going to like me saying talk to a dietitian, but I have to say that just for legal reasons, because I'm not one. But Some women will have 10% more calories from the day before through the day after or so that they have their cycle. My understanding is if you add some serotonin producing foods or some food with magnesium, that makes a difference.
I've heard that too.
So, there is such a thing as an authentic biological craving, and it's something worth paying attention to.
Right. I think what it's helped me to do though is, and I think maybe one of my biggest worries that you might be able to help me with is that I'm afraid that if I let go just for those couple of days and have a little bit more or give myself a little bit more of what I'm craving, like I didn't go out and eat chocolate or anything like that. I had a bowl of sugar cereal the other day because it was right before my period and I was just like, I don't know what to do with myself. you know but I also don't want that to just become an excuse, and I'm afraid if I have an excuse on a couple days of the month, suddenly that's going to spill into like a whole week of excuses.
Could you eat more fruit on that day?
Probably. I think what I'm looking for is like something that's sweet and crunchy like cereal. I don't know what to eat in place of that as an alternative. I'm sure I could do some looking and some like low sugar granola or something. I don't know.
Not the first thing people think of, but you could put some kind of smushed up blueberries on a brown rice cake or something like that. Or
Oh, that's a good idea. Rice cakes. I don't ever think of those. Okay.
as long as you don't binge on those, you should be okay.
And I did eat more fruit the other day because I was like, I got to have something sweet, but it was never satisfactory because it wasn't crunchy.
Sometimes I'll also make a salad with cruciferous vegetables like cabbage and maybe some radishes, things like that. And I'll put some blueberries or cherries in there. And then I get the crunchy sweet thing together. Sometimes I'll make a dressing with some hemp seeds or something like that also. But there are ways to go about it if you step back and think about it or look a little online.
This is all relatively new. I've only been doing this for like 5 weeks. And so I've been through 2 menstrual cycles since then. And the first one, I did notice that my cravings were significantly down the days that I would normally just like eat everything and be making special trips to the gas station or the grocery store just to buy chocolate or chips or whatever. I didn't do those things. So it is definitely more manageable. But I just think with the hormones that go with it, when I'm in it, it's a little harder to see the forest through the trees. I'm sure other women would agree with this that you can say all you want about being prepared for your period to show up and eating right and all these things, but when you're actually living in it, it's like, this is the worst. So,
It's like that with all authentic biological needs. When there's a really strong craving and your brain has developed an automated habit loop, it knows that it can get what it thinks it needs from the sugar.
yes, I did have to sit down and really think through like, is this really biological? Or am I having like these thoughts because I've conditioned them?
The conditioned part of it is the idea that the only way you can satisfy the need is with sugar. There are other ways you can satisfy the need, but there is an authentic biological change during your cycle that does drive cravings. Like you're not imagining that, it's actually there. It's a question of putting in the work to figure out what else can satisfy it.
Yeah, now having done this for a little while, I think, in the next month or so, figure out what it is that can help me combat that. But I never would have done this without defeat your cravings. I would just be in this endless, like, well, I'm just starving and I'm angry and I have raging hormones and I'm just going to eat whatever I want. And it would be like 7 straight days of binging. And then it would be hating myself, feeling bad, all of those things. And I haven't had that at all. I had one day where I overate just a little bit, and the next day I was like a little bit swollen and my fingers kind of hurt. And I thought, it's not worth it. It's not. I just appreciate you saying things like we shouldn't be like conforming to eating garbage, which is what people think is normal. Like it should be normal that I should have a big, massive ice cream cone or a donut every day or
You can't strive to be average with food in our society because average is horrible. 40% of the population is obese, and ridiculously high percentage of people have cardiovascular disease, not just the kind you die from, but the kind you suffer from for a long time, and diabetes and kidney problems and all these diet reversible or diet preventable conditions.
that does take me back to like my big why is just mostly I don't want to age in pain. And I think that Defeat Your Cravings has helped me a lot too, with even in things of like when I have this push and pull of should I get up and exercise or do I not want to do that? I actually wrote a rule for that. It has nothing to do with food, but I figured if I can write a rule about food and stick with it, I could probably write a rule about anything else in my life where there's a push and pull like that. Because food has always been like, I'm serious. I would wake up every morning and think, oh, am I going to binge today? I don't know. I have no trust in myself. I don't know what I'm going to do. And now I'm like, oh, if there's any woman for this job, it's me, you know?
Good. Terrific. What else could I help you with?
Honestly, I don't know that I have a whole lot of questions. When I saw you put the thing out that someone could talk to you, I just thought, I got to tell this guy how awesome this is. And I know you hear that from a lot of other people, but I guess maybe it's one of those things where I haven't really told anybody about this, that I'm doing this, because I am one of those people where when I decide to make a change, I don't want to broadcast it from the rooftops because I just want to see how it goes before I say anything to anybody. And I don't want to tell people and then have them say, well, you're never going to eat sugar again? That's crazy. I guess that's one of my biggest concerns is like coming clean with my new lifestyle. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you can just say, I don't eat sugar. You don't have to tell them that you're never going to do it again. It's a different way of thinking to commit with perfection, yet know that if you make a mistake, you're going to forgive yourself with dignity. Most people think you should do the best you can. Aim for progress, not perfection, which is true and it's not true because you need to be able to purge your mind of that insecurity when you're aiming at the target. And saying progress, not perfection, when you're aiming at a food target, like I don't eat sugar, just means you're going to try for a little while until you don't feel like it anymore. You have to aim with perfection and say, I'm never going to do this, and then be able to switch your mindset if you make a mistake. That scares most people. There are a lot of very common objections to that, which take a while to go through. And so you just say, I don't eat sugar.
Yeah. I've noticed it. My desires for it are just down like a lot. My kids and my husband and I, we do a movie night usually every Sunday night. We pick a movie and we make popcorn and everyone picks out candy the day before. And, we do kind of like we're at a movie theater. The first night that we watched a movie and I wasn't having any candy, I could only focus maybe like 50% on the movie. And the other 50% of me was like thinking about what my kids were eating and my husband and all the candy and the stuff. And then the very next week we watched a movie, and after it was over, I realized I didn't think for 1 minute about what they were eating and wishing that I was also having it. So just to have that go down in me, it's like I'm not quite sure who this person is inside of me.
But you have a normal, healthy, functioning brain, and the same brain that formed the automated loops and decided that you needed sugar to survive is capable of redirecting it elsewhere. And it seems like a whole different person, but it's actually the very same brain that did that. Everybody has that natural ability inside of them.
Yeah, and I think giving up sugar too, my skin looks better, my teeth look whiter, my teeth don't feel gritty from like eating sugar all day. Yeah, I just feel better. It's pretty amazing.
Marion, do you have any questions or concerns?
No, I don't think so. This has just been really great. My biggest concern was how to deal with like the true biological craving that's like a hormonal thing versus my brain telling me, "Oh, this is what we always do. Let's just do this." But I think you've helped me put that fear to rest a little bit. And so, when you say a lot, like when you're of sound mind and body, I hear you say that a lot in your podcast episodes. And I felt like over the days when I have PMS, I don't feel like I'm of sound mind and body. I shouldn't be making decisions on those days. I'm not saying I'm like crazy, but things just don't feel aligned. But now, like today, I feel better. Like I'm going to figure out what is the sweet, crunchy thing that I can have in my arsenal or in my toolbox so that when I do have that biological craving, I know how to satiate it as opposed to just eating all the fruit. Because the fruit was good, but it wasn't satisfying.
Cut up apples in a salad with cabbage and maybe some radishes or other cruciferous vegetables. That satisfies that crunchy sweet taste also. Yeah.
Yeah, rice cakes are a great idea. I didn't ever think about something like that. So that's what I'm going to do. My plan is to figure that out. And then just remember too that I have to probably ride those couple of days out. I see steady weight loss too. And I weigh myself every day because I just like to have a baseline of what's going on. I do notice my weight definitely fluctuates with menstruation, and it'll like halt and go up even a couple pounds. And those are days when I would probably go, well, just screw this. I'm just going to eat everything I want because none of this is working at all. I think if I can ride those days out with some patience and some satisfying food, it won't derail me.
That sounds like a plan.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. Now, if you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.